Welcome, everybody. You're listening to Out Comes the Sun Radio. I am here with my amazing co-host, Melissa Yamaguchi. I'm Mariel Hemingway. I'm in Idaho right now. She's in California. We've got the best of two amazing worlds kind of converging through the internet somehow, creating our sunrise section where we talk about something. What are we going to talk about today? Well, we have a great guest, so
we have a great guest.
Yeah,
I'm wondering if I've been reading about this so much that I tapped into, and I've only seen 3 episodes, and I haven't watched the whole thing, but I want to know, have you heard about a show on Hulu called The Bear?
My favorite. I can't believe you. So I watched the first season, and I do believe it is my favorite show I've ever watched, ever. I love this actor. What's his name?
He's so fantastic. Funny. He's got 3 names. He's worth remembering.
He was in he's so good. Jeremy Allen White.
Yeah, my kids love him. Yeah. And my son especially just thinks he's fantastic.
There's so good.
Couple things going on that I thought would be worth kind of talking about.
Well,
One is, I'm going to give my honest assessment here. When I first started watching the show, I'd been reading so much about it. I thought, okay, well, I'm going to tap in and see what this thing's about. When I first started watching the show, it was a little bit difficult for me to watch because it was so chaotic and so angry and so all over the place. And intellectually, you can understand it because you're dealing with a lot of upheaval in his family and a lot of upheaval in his own life. So you understand the chaos and the anger. And it was moving at such a pace that I really kept telling myself, stick with it, because it would have been easy for me to just click it off in the first half of the first episode.
Right.
I stuck with it. And I'm really glad I did, because either I've become adjusted to the tempo, or the show has found its own pace it didn't slow down. So I've kind of working with it. The genius behind this show and showing the inner workings and the pain that take place in a family when tragedy has happened and how everyone responds. It's been remarkable to me to watch this show and to see how this is being handled in real life terminology, in real people responses, not scripted, beautiful dialogue where everyone walks away feeling like they just got dessert. I really like it.
That is the genius of this show. It is scripted in a way that people really talk.
Yep.
They really do lose their, excuse me, SHIT. They lose it. They get upset about things, and they overreact. And it's the way humans are. There's so much humanness. We have a show where we talk to Scott. Oh, today we're speaking to Scott, and we talk about the humanity of people, the humanness of people.
That's right.
And this show is so human. It's so raw.
Yeah.
And this actor does an extraordinary job. He plays a chef, a very kind of, for lack of a better term, decorated, like he's like
Michelin star,
CIA, big deal. But he comes back to his hometown, and he's going to take over the restaurant that his brother had. That was the family restaurant kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it really takes you on a ride that makes you really question how you've reacted to things in your own. I know for me, because there's been so much tragedy in the family as a whole, to see the rawness of how people in this react, and not just family, but people that have become family. People that worked in the restaurant with the brother that is gone, at the time. It's just very well conceived. I don't think I've ever seen something that was that raw and that real.
Yeah.
That wasn't a documentary.
No, I agree. I thought it did take me about a beat to get into it. Once I got into it, I'm just now I know what the hoopla is about. If those in our listening in our audience have not watched The Bear from Hulu, do yourself a favor, get a hold of this
it's
show, because
extraordinary.
it's heavy, it's intense, it's a very masculine approach to a lot of things, but it's a very, and then there's they do have a nice little bit of a balance there with other people coming in, but it's good, very, very good, great show, The Bear.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I'm such a
it's a
foodie. I
great
love
show.
watching the food prep too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so good. I mean, it's wonderful. I think actually they've agreed to a third season. The second season hasn't quite come out yet, but that they're doing a third season. I think Jamie Lee Curtis has a role in it. I saw somehow.
Everybody wants to be on The Bear.
Everybody wants to be on The Bear, even if you just won an Academy Award. There you go. You know. Oh, anyway, everybody, you're listening to Out Comes the Sun Radio with my co-host, Melissa Yamaguchi, and I'm Mariel Hemingway. And stay where you are. We have such a beautiful and amazing guest, and using his words, gorgeous. He has gorgeous information for all of us to take home with us. So stay where you are, come back. We've got a great guest. As a mental health advocate and author, I love books. Books have the capacity to inspire, educate, transform, and ultimately help readers all over the world. So if you want to publish your book, or if you need help writing your story, I highly recommend Mindstir Media, rated the #1 best book publisher around the country. Mindstir Media can help you no matter where you are in the book writing or publishing process. Go to mindstirmedia.com to learn more and schedule a consultation. Hello, everybody. You're listening to Out Comes the Sun Radio with Melissa Yamaguchi and myself, Mariel Hemingway. And so happy, so honored, so I don't know, our guest is somebody that when I met him, I met him briefly in Denver, and I'll explain that probably in another show because I have to explain that. It's a long, detailed story, but it's part of kind of what we're doing together in life, and Melissa's going to be doing it, all kinds of cool things. Anyway, long story short, we got to do a project together, and I just want to say that Scott has this amazing ability to almost like mind meld or something. Like you have an ability to get into the emotional being, the emotional body of somebody else, and really and really come from you literally wrote something down and you said, how does this feel to you? And I literally cried because I felt like I was saying it. And so that probably all sounds like cryptic nonsense to you, all of you that are listening. But basically, Scott, you're extraordinary at really helping people to find kind of find their true inner voice, not the inner voice that's attacking you, because that's not really your true inner voice. That's the mean something that we gathered over the years. But you really have this ability to help people find who they are in a way and it's so simple and it's so gentle. And I to say that project, doing that project to you was such a beautiful experience. And I felt like I had, merged with my long lost brother, because I've never had a brother. So thank you very much for being that for me. So Scott Mills, thank you for what you do in the world. And maybe you could explain to people kind of what it is that you do. Like what is that thing that you do? Because it's kind of extraordinary, and I liken it to magic.
I love it. I have to tell you, so I was at a party with my mom a little while ago, and she said to me, apparently people come up and ask her what I do all the time. And she says, I have no idea what the hell you do. And she'll tell people at these parties, you go ask him, but she knows I hate being asked at parties. And I always say I don't talk about work. So, but this is a party, the different kind of party with the two extraordinary folks with you all. And what a gift it was to do and continue to do this project with you, because we're still a little bit left, bringing out your brilliance. I think a couple things I'll say about what I do. I do a lot of things. I've been in this quote unquote industry for about 20 or 30 years now. Ever since I was 19, started leading retreats and teaching people and guiding them and doing music and doing all kinds of stuff. And it's led me to this place where a lot of times I'm something like a book whisperer and a course whisperer. And what I'm doing is being what I call a sacred mirror. So Sacred Mirror simply looks at someone like you, Mariel, and says, there is so much brilliance here. And sometimes people have whispered in your ear and said, who do you think you are? Sometimes that's you, who said, who do you think you are to tell people this? What do I have to say? What could I possibly add to the equation? And I think the reality is most of us are saying something like that to ourselves, and we let it hold us back from the really important world-changing work we need to be doing. This beautiful concept in Judaism is tikkun olam, to repair the world, to put the broken pieces back together. And so what I'm doing when I sit down with someone like you is just allowing your brilliance to be seen through an undistorted mirror. Because even our partners and our families and our friends can listen to us with our big dreams and our ideas and our hopes, and we might say, like, I want to write a book. Well, no, you've written a couple of books, so we know you can do that. But they might say, like, another book? What else do you have to say? Right? Or, oh, well, I don't know if anybody's going to listen to you about politics because you write in health, or whatever it might be. And so the beginning is simply just to allow the person to emerge. And the funny thing is, I've written for a lot of New York Times bestsellers and big authors, and come in and done tons of work. And sometimes I'll be at an event and someone will say, oh my God, that email you sent out changed my life. And there's a little part of me that goes, oh, I wrote that email. But what I know is true is that I wrote that email stepping into their voice.
Yeah.
So it's quite a fun process. I actually think of it's kind of an art and a magic to it that combines the two. And that's only about 20% of what I do. The bigger picture is I work with the brain and I work with super resilience. I help people really find calm, grounded, centered spaces that they can work from and they can create from and they can play from. It's funny, I'm doing an event that's based with this company in London next week, and they wrote my bio and they said, world-renowned leadership coach. And it was so weird to hear somebody say that. I looked at this and I was like, clearly they're talking about somebody else. This is not my experience. And then I remembered sitting down the other day with four friends. Four of us were out to dinner in Denver. One of them, 5-time best-selling author, consults governments. Another one produced the top-selling Disney movie, a good friend of yours, Dr. Gary Goldstein, who we just both adore. Yeah. And then Luis Chapa, who's one of the top opera singers in Europe. And I was sitting in this group and I was thinking about this when I saw that, and realized that all of those people were people who had come to me for help and advice over the years. And I was like, oh, so maybe there is something, like I might be knowing what I'm doing. So I'm saying that because I think even after almost 30 years of doing this work, there's that still little voice that I have that goes, who do you think you are to say you're a world-renowned anything? Like, I'm like, well, that's a weird word. What if we just say I'm good at my job?
Well, what's really wonderful about that, first of all, the humility, but also that you get a person, you see a person in the place that they are, right? And then they can expand from there. And your brilliance comes from seeing other people's brilliance and allowing them to just gently move into that. And I think that that's what you do. And like you said, it's probably 20% of what you do, because you really do work with the brain and resilience and all that stuff. But don't you think, let me ask you this, don't you think that really the brain power and the ability, we spoke to John Sane recently, and you know him, and
I'm teaching with him.
Yeah, you're teaching with him. And he talks about this idea that we need to accept what what is coming, even though we don't know what's coming. So part of that is just getting to a calm space. We need our brains to be neutral in a way so that we don't have massive reaction to what we don't understand, right? And there's going to be tons of things in the near future that we're going to go, whoa, 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 like, well, I'm not used to that. Don't you think that you need that? It's almost, that's where it starts, that ability to just be at calm,
Yeah. So there's a beautiful author named Anthony DeMello, and Anthony was an Indian by birth in India, and he is a mystic, this Catholic priest, mystic, gorgeous soul. And he wrote one of the core truths that I live by, which is life is a mess and it's all okay. And so he says, this is the core truth of all mystics, that life is a mess and it's all okay. And sitting with that, what I think I'm teaching people to do, and when John and I do our course, we just filmed this course in Denver last week or 2 weeks ago. What I think I'm doing, he's doing, we're doing together, is we're essentially teaching people to surf. You can be in the middle of the craziest ocean, right? The waves are choppy, they're coming. The waves are going to be choppy no matter what. So we can be in the middle of the ocean and be afraid we're going to drown. Or we can be in the middle of the ocean and see if there's a way that we can enjoy the ride. So we can find our little surfboard, and sometimes we're going to fall off. Sometimes we're going to have a hard day. But the capacity to surf relies exactly on what you're talking about, which is this ability to come back to a resilient set point. So one of the bizarre things that happened during COVID, and it makes a ton of sense to me why this happened, but so many of us had that set point raised because for 2 years, we sat in the middle of a trauma bath. We sat in this place where we were like, what's going to kill us? Is it something that we brought home in the grocery bag? Is it something who breathed us on us in a bus? Is, like people were in their cars wearing their masks all by themselves. He's like, wait, am I going to breathe on myself and give myself something that I didn't even know I had? So we lived in this place where for 2 years, everything was frightening. Yeah. And so much of what we reset to, and we were already in a chaotic enough world, we didn't need this, became looking out for fear. And the brain got really acclimated to being in this danger mode. Now, everything in our culture tells us to be in danger mode to start with. So, if you turn on, any kind of news station, doesn't matter which political spectrum you're on, for the most part, it's gonna say, be afraid, be afraid, be afraid. I finally just really fallen in love with podcasts in the last little bit because they're extended conversations where I don't have to be afraid. I can actually listen to real people talk about real things and have some sense of like, oh, we could do something about that. Yeah. So we've got the news that's telling us to be afraid. We've got every advertisement is telling us there's something wrong with us. We're broken. Our teeth aren't white enough. We're not tall enough. We're too fat. We're too short. We're too skinny. Like a whole 9 yards. So everything coming at us is constantly telling us you're in danger. And so then we had COVID just heaping on top of that. Yeah. So at this point, I think that the work for so many of us is to find a way back to a grounded space where we can sit across a table with each other when we have different opinions, when we have different ideas, and be able to say, okay, so you're a human being too, and I'm a human. And here's the crazy thing. As two humans, we have 95% of our lives in common. We have so much in common, and let's find a way to connect. I'll tell you a funny little story because I know you'll edit if this is too long. But I was at this event in Las Vegas a few years ago, and I find Vegas to be like the strangest place. If you're energetically sensitive at all, it's like being bombarded nonstop. So I just leave exhausted. So I always have to go to like Big Bear or something right after. And I got this event for marketers, which I'm like, how the hell did I get into this thing? It's because I was working with this huge Japanese author and was trying to connect some folks. But I'm at this event, and this woman I met said to me, and this is right before COVID, she said, well, I said, hi, I'm Scott, so good to meet you. She said, oh, I'm whatever. we're probably on opposite sides of the fence. And I was like, I don't see any fences, but she was talking about politics, right? There's no fences in this place. And I said, here's the funny thing for me. I have traveled all over the world. I've had conversations with people all over. I've taught people, taught them to bring their brains back to center. And here's what I know. Everybody I talk to wants to be healthy. They want to have a job that matters. They want their kids to do better than them.
Mm-hmm.
And they want these basic things, right? We want to be happy. We want to be healthy. We want to be connected. That's 95% of who we are.
Yeah.
And then we put this little 5% on that says you're in the red team or the green team or the yellow team.
Right.
Yeah. The yellow team's not even really running for us, right? It's just the one we picked. So much of that anxiety, that tension has come out on that little 5% of who's on the yellow team, the green team, the orange team. Instead of just saying, we're all on the same team together. We're all global citizens. We're all here to make the world a better place, to make ourselves happier, to make us healthier. You being healthier doesn't make me less healthy. You being happier doesn't make me less happy. In fact, it does the opposite. It makes us all healthier and happier. So that to me is the kind of the foundation of this work on resilience I do, is getting people to a place where they can be calm, grounded, connected, and really open-hearted to each other. Because otherwise, what's the point?
I have that begs a question for me, if I may. When people are leaning in to hear this show, and for someone who doesn't have the advantage or the opportunity to work with you, and they want to navigate this challenge of recentering the brain. I love that term, because I think it's so vital to every decision you're making, right? In feng shui, I always, especially right now, we're in the month of sheep. I've been telling my clients, you cannot afford to make emotion-based decisions right now. I need you to come from logic. And they're saying, how? How am I supposed to come from logic when I'm so upset, when I'm so impassioned about what we're talking about? All right. So I have feng shui tricks, but my question for you, Dr. Scott, is how, when you're working with people who have been so bombarded with news, with life in general, and with the chaos, even though it may be okay, of life, and their brain feels a little bit like scrambled eggs, what are some of the tools that you utilize when working with them to get them back to a place of center, or maybe for the first time find center?
That's a great question. So let's break it apart a little bit. First thing, and I think Mariel picked this up a little bit ago, the first thing for all change, and I work mostly from a Taoist Buddhist perspective, mixed in with neuroscience. So sometimes we call my work neuro-Taoism.
Mm-hmm.
The beginning of all change is to be with what is. So this is a very Eastern perspective. The Western world, the beginning of all change is to go, oh shit, what's going on? This is terrible. Let's fix it. Yeah. Right? There's no space. They're going to run. They're like, we all do this, right? We grew up in this. So the very beginning is just to simply say, where am I right now? And to be capable of being with that. And I always say that in a way that sounds like it's simple. It's the hardest thing in the world to do, because our whole system is designed to take us into comfortable spaces when we're feeling just uncomfortable. Right? We just go, yikes, this is all terrible. We've got to run. We've got to take a drink. We've got to watch a TV show. We've got to get out of the house. We've got to buy something. God. So the very first thing I have people do is simply breathe into this moment and being able to sit with what they see and simply say okay to it. Now, this takes practice. So when I, like, for example, a lot of these decisions, it's funny to me that you even say like a logical versus an emotional decision. We don't have capacity to split ourselves in that way. So we're always going to be making emotional decisions. We're rarely going to make logical decisions. We might say that we're making a logical decision, but usually the emotional like background is playing, just playing really soft so other people can't hear it so much. It's like, oh yeah, that beautiful background music is playing. I'm going to do this, right? So first thing is just to be present to what is. So often that is for folks to just say, I'm overwhelmed. I'm scared. There's too much going on right now. I feel like I can't make a decision. My head feels like it's going to explode. There's so much going on. So, and we just literally say okay to every single one of those. Mm-hmm. Okay, you feel like you're overwhelmed. okay. And we sit with that long enough for overwhelm to be okay, so that we don't have to run with it. So that's the first place. And I have a ton of strategies, techniques, mostly brain resets. But the simplest one that people can go to from there is breath. I love breath. I tease my clients all the time that none of my clients ever walk out of the house and say, oh my gosh, I left my breath at home. If they did, they're in big trouble, right? So bigger problems than I can solve on a phone call or a Zoom call. So the very beginning is then to say, like, what can we do with breath? So there's a really simple breath that is used by the Navy SEALs, the Army Rangers, corporate executives, which is a double inhale, single exhale. It's probably one you've seen a lot. And we kind of make it fancy. One of my students, Dr. Bernard Langwallner, over in Munich, has taken this and turned it into tree breath. So we do tree breath so that we add a little motion. So it's simply 2 inhales with the arms going up, followed by 1 long exhale. Right?
I like that.
If you do that tree breath for 2 minutes, it will reset your nervous system. It's the fastest access point we have to the nervous system resetting. Now, there's lots and lots of other breath techniques, but that seems to be the one that clinically Stanford has proven is the best, fastest, easiest way to get yourself back to calm. Now, that's just getting ourselves to a calm space for a moment. And we could spend 5 years talking about how you could get here. But I would say that the third thing that I do with people is get into the breath and then realize you're not alone.
Yeah.
So that's the point where once I've got my breath, I know what's going on. And I may not know all of it. I just know I feel overwhelmed. I may not know why, but okay, I feel overwhelmed. Now I'm going to want to get into community, because fundamentally we're pack animals. Humans need other humans to feel safe. Yeah. As soon as we have a sense of belonging. So if I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know what decision to make, I'm going to call Melissa. Right? As soon as I've got somebody who can hear me, who can be with me, and I can say, oh, I'm not alone in this. There's a huge part of our nervous system that relaxes, because we're no longer at the threat we would have been if it was me against the world.
Yeah.
Oh, so those are the first 3 things that I do. Be with what is, get in charge of your breath, and then, sorry about that, and then get into community. Now, there's all kinds of stuff you can do over long term. The practices you can do every day, practices you can do, that are much longer. But most people, those longer practices, if you try to teach them those at the beginning, they're not going to be able to handle it, because we've been trained to not have any anxiety allow us to be in our system. So I look for things that take less than 2 minutes. 2 minutes is like most of us can say, okay, I can breathe for 2 minutes, right? Because you've been breathing for 24 hours. Breathing for all the hours of your life. So, okay, I can do that again. I can breathe for a second. Oh, I can see what it is for just a second. Oh, I can call a friend.
Yep.
Easiest.
Well, I like what you said, and I want to what you said forced me to realize I need to correct myself. It's not making a logical or emotional decision. It's having a logical or emotional reaction. The minute you said that, I realized, okay, he's right. It's the reaction. Mariel and I recently had a relationship with someone who got upset, and instead of thinking it through and saying, okay, I'm overwhelmed. I loved what the admission, right? I'm overwhelmed. I'm feeling stressed out. Instead, this person said, I'm severing all ties. And it was such an emotional reaction. Spiritually, there's a way to come back from that. And energetically, there's a way to readdress that and to refocus, and so to not have any anger towards it. But in the moment, the severance was so harsh because it was such an emotional response to maybe his anxiety. So I love that you said that, because you're right. It's the reaction, not the decision.
And that's a person, honestly, who's probably had a lot of heartbreak and a lot of rejection in their lives. We don't hit 30, 40, 50 and do those kind of things unless when we were very young, we had some significant abandonment in our lives. Yeah. So one of the capacities to sit with what is in those situations to simply sit with what is and say, okay, this is who you are in the moment. This is all that you have that's available to you right now. And part of the beauty of working out of the Buddhist Taoist frame there's no sense of brokenness in the work I do with people. So that person, for example, and I know we've all done things like that.
Yeah.
Right? We've all gone, we're going to pack up our toys and go home because we don't feel safe here. And that's really what he was telling you. I don't feel safe here. Probably had nothing to do with you.
Right.
Probably had, some old echoes coming through. So that, what I love is I say to people, there's no part of us that's not working for the good of us all the time. There's no part of us that's broken. So that part of him that said, I need to get out of here because I'm unsafe, that's probably the only tool he has.
Wow.
Like, when I feel unsafe, I have to exit.
I have to run. Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's a flee response.
And that's exactly what that was. And the interesting thing, because you've said 3 things that are very much a part of Melissa and I's kind of relationship and how we do this show. Yeah. I mean, it really, like you were saying, and it was like, wow, that's so cool. Because we come together, we're our community. Like, she's the voice I go to if I can't get you now, Scott, but if, she's the voice and we commiserate, we realize we're not alone. And, we both had different reactions, but we both have the same reactions at different times.
Yeah.
To this whole situation. It was very funny. Because my initial reaction was relief and
giggles and giggles, loads of giggles,
and laughter. Yeah, we totally laughed about, you were
laughing.
The next day, I kind of reacted and I was like, wait a second, but then I was okay. But I knew that I needed to have that moment of, aggravation, a little bit, my feeling of abandonment, whatever it was. But I went through that, and with Melissa, it was good.
Yeah, you had a huge tension release. So when you went into the giggle space, chances are you were set up, you set this situation up, like we all set our situations up, in a way that conversation that should have happened probably didn't happen for quite a long time. And so there was a tension likely building in the two of you. So when he left, it was like, thank God, we don't have to deal with this now. Right.
Wow.
And so that's another, I'm cheating because I've read your autobiography, I've read your books. So, I have like an insider's view into your mind, which, by the way, if folks have not read Mariel's autobiography, it's just stunning and brilliant, to the point that one of my friends who's a huge Disney writer, so if you've seen movies like Lion King and Tarzan and Newsies, like, she's such a huge fan of Mariel's work. She was listening to your autobiography and she was literally texting me quotes and calling me and being like, oh my gosh, I just listened to this chapter. Have you heard this chapter? I'm like, yes, I've heard all the chapters. So it's so beautiful. And you had a family where having honest conversations wasn't an option on the menu, right?
No,
so when there's tension, it's like, we're going to ignore this tension. And that person is not capable of having, so, you're just kind of creating this big black hole and waiting, like kind of throwing combustibles into a pot, waiting for it to explode so something takes care of itself.
Yeah.
And again, like,
right.
We can say that with humor because we're adults that see that every part of us is working for the best of us. What I think is really fun in the work with the way the brain is set, those old patterns don't have to be our destiny. So for so many of us, we create these patterns. I have my own patterns. I tell you a funny story. I walked into a class of mine years ago with this professor who's been one of the most influential professors in my life. His name is Dr. Carl Buchheit. Carl taught me, after my PhD, I did 4 years of postdoc to understand how the brain works, and he's brilliant. And so I was taking these classes with him and a bunch of other people, obviously, he's teaching. And I went into this class and Carl said to me, do you know how rude you are? And I was like, oh, what? I know, like, your face did the same thing everybody's does. Because, people think I'm sweet and kind, and, we all have that, right? And I was like, what do you mean? And I don't even know I can't remember what even started this conversation, but he said, yeah, every room you go in, you look for the person who's dangerous. And I was like, no, that's not true. He said, if you went into a room full of kittens, you would look for the dangerous one. And my first thought, I kid you not, was kittens tear shit up and they pee on things. So I was like, you're right. Kittens are awful. I have to be wary of that kitten. And what that was my nervous system had, because of the way I grew up with a father who was very erratic. You know, one of these people who could be very happy one moment, but could be ragey the next. So one of my friends calls this, you had to watch for the weather.
Yeah.
So, you know, I grew up not knowing if something was going to be dangerous or safe at any point. And so that pattern came with me into my adult life. And I would look, you know, go to parties, and I'd be in groups, and who's the one who's going to be kind of wacky in here? Who's going to be the disruptive one? Who's going to be the problem child? And what ended up shifting for me is I did this work, right? And a lot of the techniques that I've developed are because I needed them. You know, I'd go to Buddhism, I'd go to Taoism, I'd go to mysticism, I'd do the neuroscience work. And what's beautiful now is I don't walk into rooms with the same kind of setting. Now I look to see who's the most extraordinary person in this room that I can't wait to talk to. Who are the most beautiful folks who are going to have gifts to give me? I don't mean like money, but just the gifts of their presence, who they're being.
But that's a brilliant commendation on your ability to understand your work and then use that work to create new thoughts. Because isn't that what it's about? It's like, how can we, you know, if like John Sane talks about that we have 95,000 of the same thoughts every single day, to create new ones and have new ways of going about your day, or you go into a party and you now want to go for something different. You don't need to find the most dangerous person so that you can prepare yourself for that moment, you know, whatever that is. It's very interesting. That's a great, I mean, it's beautiful, and it's so doable. When you say it, when you talk about it, it feels like, oh, I mean, it's not a course, but I can see where you make it very understandable for people to step into the place where they can take care of themselves. And I think that that's what people are longing to do.
So it's a yes and John and I are in this deep conversation about this right now, because so much of my work is somatically based. So yes to new thoughts. But so often what I hear people say is that, you know, they get stuck in the mindset work, which is really funny to me that they're stuck in mindset. So they're constantly trying to come up with new thoughts. And the reality is most of the stuff actually happens in our body before we ever get to the thought space. So our body speaks about 3 seconds before our brain does. That sounds like a very small amount of time, but in terms of neurological shift, it's a huge amount of time. That's like saying we have a year in between the time something happens to us, you know, whether we smell it, we have like we sense memory, you know, we get a trigger from something, and the time in which we react. So what I'm more in my work is retraining the body, so the body doesn't have to go into the fear response, and then the new thoughts take care of themselves. You know, there's a little bit of
thank you for that. Thank you for what you just said, because I was actually struggling with the idea of how do you get to the place of a new mindset or new thoughts? Like, it seemed like a struggle, because you can't make yourself think new, right? I mean, I guess
you get comfortable. You get comfortable in the old thoughts, even if they don't work for you. There's still a place of familiarity. Yeah.
But I mean, it's really about training the body, like through breath, through, you know what I mean? And we talked about this. Movement is such a big, important thing, like taking walks, moving, you know, doing the tree breath, whatever it is, whatever gets you actually out of here. You know, we need to sometimes release ourselves from the constant grabbing of the brain, that sort of Eastern the state of the mind controlling you, and you just kind of allowing the mind to do what it does, but sitting in the body, like grounding yourself, literally.
Absolutely. It's funny because for me, like, I've been playing with this a lot lately, and I was listening to Joe Dispenza meditation, which I really enjoy his work. And so I was doing one this morning. I feel like everyone I know is doing Joe Dispenza now. A couple friends just came from like a 7-day retreat with him. And the meditation I was doing was very active, very yin. Very yin. So the meditation was like, you got to force through these this structure that you've had your whole life. And so he was doing this very embodied work, which was like a microcosmic orbit piece, gorgeous. But it was funny because afterwards I was thinking about how yin my work is in comparison. So meaning things like breath open space for the body to relax. Things like playing in states. So I look for, I joke because I'm from the South, although you can't hear my accent unless I've had a drink. One drink and you'll hear it. But I'm from the South, and everybody goes to the family and you go through the back door, right? So I grew up going to my grandparents' house and going in the back door. I say this work that I do is backdoor work, right? We don't go directly in because the brain, it's beyond being comfortable. The brain knows its primary function is to keep you alive. And so whatever you have said is a comfortable pattern, it's what it survived before. So the brain has gone, check, okay, we know we can make it through this. It doesn't know if you could sit down with that guy who behaved badly and have an honest conversation and survive it.
Right.
There's part of your brain that doesn't know if you could survive that yet.
Right.
So what I'm looking for is not how do we go directly into like, let's change our thoughts around this. You're always safe, whatever it might be, changing the mindset. I think about much more like a hot tub. And then if we can step into states, which is really what meditation is all about, states of stillness, states of contentment, but also states of ecstasy, states of delight, states of wonder and awe, states of oneness. As soon as you step into a state of oneness, things like that guy who walked away, it's like, okay, well, he needed to walk away at this moment, right? Yeah. We're still connected. The world is bigger. It'll be interesting to hear if he listens to this podcast and says, oh my gosh, because one of the beautiful things that might happen for him is he may actually have a mirror. Says, like this, that wasn't who I wanted to be in that moment, but that was the part of me that only knew how to survive by getting out of there. And if someone like that, or someone like any of us, has the chance to just relax and to not judge ourselves, not feel like we're some worthless, horrible piece of, debris that, woe is me, I'm the worst human on the planet. If we can go, oh my gosh, I did a really good job yesterday being human, right? A+, I was very human. My students joke, because I call this, we have an adjective for it. We were like, you're very human-y, right? So when you go, okay, I was being very human, now can I be gentle with myself and step into a state of compassion? Some of the Maitri Buddhist practices are so gorgeous. You tell a story, and I'm going to tell this badly, but I tell everyone I talk to when I say I've been working with you and your profound work, but you tell the story of going to India to meet the Dalai Lama. And being in the space of, there was some big transition happening, and you're there with your family, and everybody else brings their questions in. And you said, I didn't really have a question. I just wanted to be there in the presence of the Dalai Lama, which, my God, like that would be enough, right? For any of us just to be present to him. And you said he walked over to you at the very end, and he put his hand on yours and simply said, you're okay. You're okay. Right? If we can get ourselves into that space, if we can connect to other people, our community that can hold us, like if I can call Melissa and Melissa can say, hey, you're okay. Right? We can do that for each other, which we do all the time.
Yeah.
That starts to reset the neurology because we co-regulate with each other. So now another human being whose heart, my open heart, my vulnerable heart has been able to reach out and say, Melissa, this was really hard. And she says, you're okay. We're okay together. Right? We sink in a little bit. We don't have to be so agitated. So one of the worst things you can do for a friend is when they call you and you say, that person was terrible. And you go, you're right, they're terrible. We want them to die in a horrible death. Which we all have said something like that. And you're like, oh my God, I did it for 4 years with political things. I imagine you can know who I'm talking about. And so, it's like, oh my God. But when we can say to each other, we're okay, we can start to shift because our nervous systems are designed to co-regulate and to calm down with each other. And now we have people. Now, if we're being really brilliant, we build a community, and there's 10, 15 women or men or like conscious people who can also sit with us and just hold that space.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Then,
my God, Scott, I want to talk to you forever. we have to wrap up, and will you please come back and speak to us?
Anytime.
Because you are really, this is so, number one, helpful to both of us.
Oh yeah.
On so many levels. Because I think ultimately, and even though you weren't wrapping it up, but I'm wrapping it up for you, getting to the place of compassion is ultimately what we all want to get to, right? Seeing other people's journey and the shoes that they've had to walk in, and like it's okay. They're okay too.
Yeah.
Which means I'm okay, right? And so whatever has transpired, it's okay. Because that's exactly what needed to happen for that person to move on, for us to move forward, for the world to come to this place where we're going to wrap up this show with you. But that doesn't mean you're not coming back, because you have to come, because we love you. Oh my gosh.
You only have a one-way ticket. You can never leave. And Mariel, I want to vow to you as your friend that if you ever, the next time you and I encounter something, or if you ever feel like griping, I'm not going to jump in with you. I'm simply going to go head, shoulders, knees and toes, just to lighten it up. You're okay. I actually like that, because I am that friend who jumps in and says, okay, I've got my ammunition. Where do we need to go? So I actually like that.
Which for about 30 seconds feels really good. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. And you can say, let's spend the next 2 minutes being angry together.
Okay. Yeah, exactly.
Which is okay.
Which is what we do. And we do get through it.
We do get through it.
We do come to the other end. We just might have spent more than 30 seconds. So
we laugh. We do laugh.
We'll set our 2-minute revenge timer and plan all of the ways that Earl has to die. And then we'll be done. And then we'll move into the space where what we do is we just see each other. And Melissa can be with you and say, yeah, I can feel how frustrated you are. I can feel how angry you are. Yeah. I see the anger. Like, and it's not like this, like, people like to paraphrase and say, oh, I can imagine that's really painful. No, I just want to hear what you're saying. Yeah. That sucks. That sounds really hard. I hear your anger. It's not to paraphrase. It's because if you paraphrase, people's brain has to check to see if the words are the right words, if they need them. But I worked in a crisis intervention hotline when I was 17, and they taught me to paraphrase. It was the worst advice I ever got. It doesn't work. We know that. So just that beautiful space where you can just say, yeah, let's spend 2 minutes planning our revenge, and then move into the space where we can hold each other in a sacred space. Doesn't mean you're not going to be angry. You could sit there and be angry for 15 minutes, or an hour or whatever. She's just not going to ramp you up. Because then she will co-regulate to you and walk out feeling angry at other people too. And there's actually a ripple effect.
Oh yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. All of a sudden I've kicked the dog and the dog doesn't know why. I'm with you.
Yeah, this is great. Thank you so much, Scott. We're going to just have you back like once a month for sure. You and Sean Sane are going to be our regulars. Once a month, we just have to talk to you to see where the world's going.
Recalibrate. Yeah, we got to recalibrate.
Reset. And we'll start with the tree breath. Double breath. Exhale. Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, so amazing.
Now I know why she talks about you all the time.
Go back to resting and getting your apartment in the proper, order. Thank you so much, Scott.
Thank you. You're listening to Out Comes the Sun Radio. This is Melissa Yamaguchi. And before I start going into my energy tip, I have a question. Is humany spelled Humany or EE? Humany. I think I have the second spelling. Okay, so I have some feng shui tips on job hunting. During the summer when our kids are looking for internships, and they're trying to get a job, whether it's a first-time job or whether you're going back in to grab a second job or just getting a job, whatever the placement is, right? There's some different little tricks of the energy trade that we use when helping people when they're job hunting. So let me just run through them and I'll explain them as we go. So the first one is to get a metallic envelope. Gold, silver, whatever. You can get it at a little stationery store. Even Target, I think, has them. A little metallic envelope. And you place in it the name of the company and or the person with whom you'll be interviewing or with whom you want to work or where you want to work, and you put it in this envelope. And then when you have that in your envelope, you put it in a place where you either do your meditating, or a place where even if you take your jewelry off at night, it's a little quiet space for you. Place it in there. It's a little reminder that this is someone that you want in your life. And the metal holds it, right? Like a metal vase. It just holds it. The second thing is to fake it till you make it. You get a fake it till you make it diary. So you begin journaling. Today at work, it was like this. When I drove into the office, this is what I see. You are incorporating into your verbiage, your daily verbiage, the fact that you already have that job. That's part of manifesting, right? But in feng shui, we use a fake it till you make it diary all the time and helping people get to where they want to go. The third thing is wear something when you do go for the interview that makes you feel safe. Where you think, well, gosh, I'm wearing my best suit and a favorite tie. Then wear a handkerchief that your grandfather gave you that makes you feel safe, or a brooch or a necklace that your mom or grandmother or auntie or best friend gave you that makes you feel loved. Wear something to the interview that makes you feel safe and loved. That's another one. Another thing is to bring red into your clothing on the interview. And I've had so many people say, I hate the color red on me. That's fine. Wear some red underwear. I don't care. Put a red handkerchief in your back pocket where nobody can see it. Doesn't matter to me. Bring the color red, the energy. Maybe not a black suit with red socks, so when you sit down that screams, but whatever. Just bring in that color red. It's a power color. The next thing is you need to, at your home, have a big space where you would be working. Now, let me explain that. Let's say that you are interviewing for a job with a company and you anticipate that you could be bringing work home. You're going to want to create a space in your home where you've got place to do work. If you're a teacher, you're going to want to create a space where you can bring stuff home to grade papers. You want to imitate that energy in your home so that you're bringing it around you. Start thinking about how you can incorporate the job. A lot of people say, oh, Melissa, that's not good. You don't want to bring work home. Okay, I don't know if you took the latest trip to Mars, but while we're here, most people bring some energy home that they've got to work with. Even if it's figuring out the hours that they worked, you got to create that space. Another thing is you've got to, on your interview, I can't say this enough. I can't tell you how many times I talk to people about this and they think, oh, Melissa, you got to be on time. As a matter of fact, being on time when you're going for a job interview means being 10 to 15 minutes early. That's on time. The job interview's at 12. Get there at 11:45. You've got to be there early that's your on time so that you can energetically be prepared. And then the last thing is one of my favorite little feng shui tips, when you're working on bringing in job hunting and interviewing. Even if you're going on a first date, this is something that I tell my clients. Take an orange before you leave and peel it. Take a little bit of that peel slice and put it in your pocket. The smell of orange uplifts and it makes you feel happy and it makes you feel joyful and it kind of takes you out of a nervousness when you smell that. When you've peeled it, you've got the smell of that orange, that beautiful essence of orange onto your fingertips or your hands, so that when you extend your hand to shake, you're putting that waft of orange towards the person when they're shaking your hand. It's a neat little trick. It's a happy, joyful trick. And knowing that in there, also the little peel is so small. Maybe before you're going in, you can rub it like a worry stone and get it all over your thumb at the same time and calm yourself down. But it's a neat little trick. Thank you for sticking around for that. Do not leave. Do not change any channel. Stay where you are. Upcoming is Mariel Hemingway to share with you about health and balance.
Welcome back, everyone. You're listening to How Comes the Sun Radio with Melissa Yamaguchi, and I'm Mariel Hemingway. I have a quick little tip today because we had such an amazing conversation with Scott today that, we actually could have gone on and on.
Yeah.
I just want to say it's summertime. Find a really great book to read. Reading, I know you know this, but like find a great beach read. And I want to say this to people who struggle with reading, right? Who may just like, God, the world is fast and I can't find it. And I fall asleep when I read or whatever it is. Or, I was brought up dyslexic and reading is actually a challenge for me. If that's the case, please join Audible or audiobooks and just don't feel bad about it. Listening to a book is still the same as reading it, right? It's the same words. You get it unabridged. It's not like they haven't changed it. It's the same words. You could even listen to my autobiography, Out Comes the Sun, since Scott mentioned it. Anyway, no, Out Came the Sun. Out Came the Sun is the autobiography. This is Out Comes the Sun podcast. Anyway, that was my only quick little tip.
Love it.
And, you know, I what a great show, Melissa. That was so much fun. I loved our conversation with Scott. I actually really do look forward to him coming back.
Yes.
Because I think he's so good at giving you tools. Like, okay, now I get it. Okay, we're going to just do that tree thing. And then we'll have our 2 minutes of like eviscerating somebody, and then we'll move on.
Head, shoulders, knees, and toes.
I love it. Oh my gosh. Well, great show. Thank you all for listening. You're listening to Out Comes the Sun. And just remember that we do this. We started this because of the Mariel Hemingway Foundation.org, which is the foundation that Melissa and I started to be a resource navigator, to just give people solutions. The only way that we can do that is if you donate to us. And we have a Venmo. If you go to Mariel Hemingway Foundation.org, you can see that there is a way to donate, because in order to become a resource navigator, we need the ability to put it together. And that's more daunting than I have the capability to do. So with your help, we can become a piece of the solution for people that are struggling with mental health issues. Anyway, we love you all. Come back every week, all the time, couple times a week, you know, whenever you want to come back. And also, I want to tell you, we've got some big and incredible news coming up. Big. So stay tuned. Something big is about to happen. And we'll let you know as soon as we can. So hang in there. Out comes the sun every day.